Welcome to the July Microsoft 365 Adoption User Group. I would like to thank Paul, my co-host, who is taking on the Melbourne User Group here locally to be able to continue running it in person for me here at Microsoft. And Chris, who I believe is online as well. Are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hello, Chris up in Brisbane, who's hosting for our Brisbane location as well. So we've now got the 3 locations. And what I am going to do as a bit of an update, I'm going to be hosting in person once a quarter personally. We're coming down to around to each of the locations as I move my way around. The Microsoft Reactor, if I'm not sure who I've spoken to or who knows, but the Microsoft Reactor in Sydney is closing down. The government has reclaimed that building, so we won't be doing in person at the reactor anymore. I will, for those that are online, I will still endeavour to have it in person. At this point, it looks like it might be at the Microsoft office in Sydney, but it will only be once a quarter that I'm going to host it in person there. So it's going to kind of move and change as I start to move around Australia. So I will, talk about that a bit more also at the end. Next month, it's the very last session at the Microsoft Reactor, so a bit sad doing the teary eyes. We'll do our kind of goodbyes at the reactor. So it'll be hosted in August in Sydney, and then in September I'll be up in Brisbane as I move my way around. So anyone that's from Brisbane, please come along for the September session. It'll be great to see you face to face. We've got a few claps happening there. Thank you very much. So as always, this presentation is available. You can scan the QR code and or the link, kind of the standard kind of link. It just generally changes the month. Each month changes the month. The information is available. The recordings do go live. So this is a recording session. And there's my music today. So it is a recorded session. I ask for those that are online to be on mute. Unless you've got a question, please feel free to raise your hand at any point. If you've got a question, please feel free to put it into chat at any point. We're keeping an eye out on questions as they come through between us all. We'll catch it. So whether it's for myself or something new or for Karlee, our speaker, put them in there. But I just ask that if you haven't put them in the chat, or if you do want to come off mute, then please raise your hand first so we can do it in the order. And I know that you need to come off mute. Excellent. If you are out there and you need to have closed captions on for accessibility reasons, or maybe English is not your first language, then please go to the 3 ellipsis button and then go language and speech, and actually then turn on closed captions. But I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting from today, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and I extend that respect to any Aboriginal Torres Strait Islanders who've joined us. Okay. In terms of a code of conduct with any user group, I ask that we be aware of others. We're kind and respectful, friendly and patient. We all come at this technology with different perspectives, especially us that happen to be MVPs that might be a little bit more vocal than others. Our opinions are our own and are not indicative or representative of any other Microsoft employee. But I ask that we're also appropriate in our chat and the information that we actually drop in there. So thank you all. Now, like always, I always start a little bit of a what have I been up to, and we might have to start getting our other guys to start doing what have we been up to. I have been playing around again. I'm doing a cake course and decorating and creating all sorts of bits and pieces. So that is a ricotta Italian cheese baked cheesecake with some. Where is it? I know. That's it. I've come to Melbourne. I need to start bringing things with me, right? And
I won't share then. I made the Microsoft 50th birthday cake, which was about this big.
Well, that's exciting. Oh, come on. Yeah, where's ours, Karlee? Now I know who to talk to. I was rather excited. I actually won a kit of stuff because someone said, "How long do you think it took me to actually, do this covering of this cake?" And I said 8 minutes and 37 seconds, and I was like 5 seconds off. I was the closest to actually the guest. So I got a little kit bag, which was exciting. I also ran some lessons, my first running of lessons for the guild, and how to make some gold leaf, because gold leaf is really expensive. So I was showing them some alternatives. Has spent a bit of time with my grandson and coming to play. He's gone green. You might have seen his hair over the years. He's going red, he's going yellow, he's going orange, and at the moment he's green. He's all into the green. And I was spending some time with my grandfather and showing him, my father, I should say, showing him AI and how he could use. I asked him what he wanted to be and where he wanted to be. So this was his description. So he was rather excited and said, "How do I do that?" And I said, "At 7 77 with brain damage and dementia, you're not going to remember anyway. So we'll just move on. So yeah, that's been my world this month. But I would like to thank very much. We have Karlee here in the room. Hello, how are you, Doug? Welcome in. We have Karlee with us. She is the Microsoft Global Blackbelt and focused on employee experience to have a little bit of a talk with us around people skills and the skilling agent. So I am going to hand over to Karlee. Thank you for being here.
I'm
So
going to
I'm going to take over the screen.
because I realised I made an error on the first
That's
slide.
okay. Go for it. Take over the screen. Okay.
No,
Yep, we
that's
can
the-
see. Yep, we can see. It's all good. You'll just
mine.
okay, here, we'll just need to swap over.
Oh, sorry, that's what.
But then we got the room audio with
Alright,
recording.
Hey,
Hey,
we'll go back to
Willifer,
yours.
you sure?
Right, hang on, sorry, technical.
So those in the room, just
Stop sharing.
actually what I'm going to do is, how do we put?
No, I'll just come in front of yours.
Yeah,
That's
I
fine.
can move this over here.
Oh, okay.
Hang on, let me just do this. If you share, and then the team will be able to see up
Do we
there.
not have, we don't have any inception happening on the call?
There you go.
We good, thumbs up
All
in
good.
the call that you can see the one without a customer name. Yep, good. We've been
Excellent.
presenting. So
still good.
hi everyone in the room and online. Hello, I'm going to focus a bit on both. My name is Karlee Scott-Murphy. I am of Anglo-Saxon descent. I've got really long brown hair. I've been wearing glasses. Well, glasses are currently on my head. Yes, I am wearing a black top. I come from an HR tech background. For those of you who know Microsoft speak, I'm a Global Blackbelt. Side note, while you've heard I make cakes as well, I'm actually training for my 3rd Dan in Taekwondo. So I carry the black belt title internally and externally as well. So I do a lot of work with customers around the employee experience, bringing that people side of things and that technology together. I love talking about anything to do with change management and communication and people and skilling and anything like that. So that's kind of where my background comes from, and I talk to all sorts of customers around the region in this capacity, and I work with our engineering team as well. So things that I hear in the room, I'll share back with our technology teams. I support the Viva product. And have been doing that for a while. So so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit. Oh, sorry. Was there a question in the room?
No, I'm just going to
screen sec. So just got to probably add the screen. Do they put us on mute?
Sorry, Brisbane's having some audio difficulties, but I've fixed that up now.
All right. So everybody can still hear me in the room?
Yep.
Thumbs up. Cool. If you can't, I'm sure it'll come up in chat. Okay. So people skills. So what this sort of was, if you'd heard about it before, it might have been skills in Viva when it was announced at GA, and this capability went general availability a couple of weeks ago. It does come as part of the Copilot experience, but you can also get it through other areas of Viva licensing, which is why I kind of sit in between those areas. So I'm going to take you through a little bit about sort of the skills landscape, what it is. But before I do, hands up in the room if you are from an HR sort of background and thought this is exciting, I'll come along, and this is your first user group. No? Everybody in technology?
No, I'm sort of fitting.
Sort of.
That first one.
Sort of. Okay, cool. In the meeting, if you want to pop in the chat or share, that would be also great. I'm kind of seeing the chat as well. All right, so I'll talk about this more from that people side, but kind of bring in what that means from a technical point of view as well. But as we think about what we call the frontier firms, and frontier firms are those firms that really are born in AI, right? So how are we thinking about, how are we looking at them and how they're structured, right? We are built off a command and control type structure from military, right? You can see kind of that I'm reporting sort of through down. So it's quite a heavy structure of the organization. But what we see in our frontier firms is really a very different structure and a very different way of working. And so really what organizations really need to think about right now is really that challenge of being able to navigate and preparing for that future of AI. How are we going to compete against those firms built and born in the era of AI? So, and that is kind of, the agents increasing the level of capability that we have over time, and how humans are going to need to harness their skills and their humanness to really redesign their organizations. So human ambition and creativity and ingenuity, we all bring this in, and it's really how do we find that economic value and opportunity when we combine it with that idea of AI. And so what we're really thinking about doing is combining those, looking at what are those AI skills, what are those things, what are the skills that are really people-based, and really bringing them together to really move forward into the future. So, we're seeing significant change over these next few years. From an HR perspective, actually, I'll come to that in a second. Our trends index, I was just trying to figure out what it's called. Our Microsoft
Work trend index.
Work trend.
Yeah,
That's the word I'm picking up.
2025
So
work trend index.
skills. The work trend index, the recent work trend index, we did ask, with 31,000 people over 31 countries that were surveyed, and one of the key things that came out in that was really around AI skilling being up there, right? Prioritizing that skilling is super important across organizations. From an HR point of view, we want to understand kind of who we've got in our organization. Hello,
Lisa.
We want to understand who we've got in our organization, what skills we have, and how can we harness that? How can we build the right skills? How can we build the right workforce for the future? And so that's really important to be able to understand. And some of where that information is coming or can come from is from that technology and how we use technology. And so this is kind of where people skills is really coming from. So I just want to quickly showcase majority of organizations are still sort of sitting on this left-hand side. What is the job you've got, and what are the responsibilities that you need to execute in your job, and can you do that, right? Where we're looking at from a more agile future is to be able to understand a skills-based approach to that. What are the skills you need to execute the role or to do the role? And so what we're looking at is organizations moving from that job-based kind of side of this continuum into that skills base. But one of the challenges we've had in the past, and anyone who's in this space will know, being able to identify skills across an organization is the holy grail, right? From an HR perspective, often it is, hey, we've got a new Surface laptop for you to win. Whoever enters their skills and updates their skills will go into that. Right? Sounds familiar?
Mhm.
Yep. Been asked to do that? Yep.
No.
No.
Not yet. Wish.
Feedbacked. But yeah, so that idea of being able to really have that information always kind of being inferred or at the fingertips, or having those prompts for people to actually come in and update, that's kind of been one of those whole, not all the holy grails at once, but one of those holy grails from a skills perspective. And so this is kind of where, when we think about people skills and what we've brought to market, first of all, right? So this is the first iteration as we go to build on more from here. But the middle one is really around how do we inference that from the work that I do every day on the Microsoft Graph. How can I use that data to then infer skills that I have, right? So with all the PowerPoint presentations, all the conversations I'm having around people skills, is that the inferencing engine should think, well, she's got skills in people skills, right? Or I'm doing X and Y, and so then it's coming up and saying, okay, we're going to infer that skills. So that's really great, because that means I don't have to go once a year and say, what are your skills, or do you have these skills? It's actually taking the initiative and kind of saying, hey, these might be the skills that you have. confirm them or deny them, whichever way you want to go. In terms of out there in our early preliminary previews, it was about an 85% fit in terms of what they were inferencing from what we saw, 84, something like that. So that's that middle box there. The other thing in terms of updating is how can we bring it into the flow of work, right? We don't want, again, to go in and say, okay, go in and click on your inferred skills once a year. But what we want to do is encourage people to be updating them throughout that period of time. And so the third box up there, but is really around how do we bring that into the flow of work and how do we nudge people to do that? And then the first box on the front is really around how do we bring that into Copilot? How do we bring kind of that knowledge and build out the responses in Copilot, not just from the organizational context, but from your skills capability context too. And so that's kind of where we've got those three kind of areas that we're looking through. So if we think about from a persona perspective, where the benefits come in. So the first one is from the individual perspective, and I am presenting on a tiny laptop screen here and my glasses aren't strong enough. So hopefully I should know this by heart. So the first one, and there is a lot of words on the screen too. So luckily you'll get a copy of the...
What I'll do.
No,
Hang
all
on.
good.
No,
I
no.
can read it by heart, so all good. So that first one is from an individual perspective, right? So from an individual perspective, I need to know who someone can help me out in this particular area, right? What is certain skill set that I might need to look at to help me out? That's your,
Hang on.
your one.
Oh, that's the old one. Hang on, I'll just bring it back. I just clicked on something. That's all. No, it's back.
That's
It's
all
back.
good. All good. We'll leave it there because I can read it anyway.
Yeah.
So that first one from an individual is keeping my skills updated, making sure I'm available for, potential people who are looking for me, or maybe we think about, does everybody know what gig economy means? Roughly, feel free to say if you don't know. So the idea about being available for gigs because you've got a particular skill. Thank you.
There you go. And you can move it around as you need to.
Am I on two screens now? two videos. Thank you. So that idea of being available because my skills are updated and for that context. If I think about learning, right, how do I grow? How do I develop the skills? So connecting that into our learning too, that's a really important kind of thread that we're kind of following in this space. From an organizational leader perspective too, I want to be able to identify people in my organizational structure if I'm looking for a particular person to work on a project, for example. Or maybe I want to be able to identify, do I have the right people in my organization? Do I need to build out a particular skill set? And so that's where organizational leaders will leverage that capability, right? To be able to understand who I've got in my organization, right? Am I building out AI capability, but part of my sales organization is not up to speed with what we're doing? Well, we need to build their skill set up so that once we produce this, we can sell this, right? So that's and really just being able to have that agility really in the future, as you've seen how fast we've gone in the last 2 years in terms of this Copilot capability, how we need to change our organization and how we work, right? That's going to continue on. That's not going to be that slow pace. If I go back to kind of like, oh, that's really close in my face there. Sorry, I've got a camera in my face right there. But if we think back to that continuum that we had in terms of that job-based versus skill-based, for those of you who've done that before, that job-based kind of architecture that you might create often takes about 3 years or so. I don't think I've heard it sort of anything under 3 years really to build that structure of what does it look like for an organization. If you think about how fast we're changing now and how quickly roles look like they're changing, we can't spend 3 years figuring this out. We need to have that agility. And so this is where, from an organizational leader and also then from a talent management perspective, right? Those people who manage what jobs do we have in the organization? What jobs do we need in the organization? What people do we need? What skills do we need? All of that. I need to be able to understand that from a talent management perspective. And so I need to be able to have that sort of one view across the organization. I want to understand where do I need to help my organization build their capability and really build that foundation for an agile workforce. Oh, cool. Oh, yeah. Hi, Barry. Yes, I'm just checking. I've got a
Barry Forster, yes.
HR geek and hugely
Yes.
excited. So Barry and I have had conversations about this before.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, please feel free to pop in the chat any comments / questions as we go along. So then if we look at the capability, so going from that persona view into the technical kind of capability as well, you've got that that ability to influence the co-pilot results that are coming through. So with more accurate information about skilling and that capability. So those answers are going to be richer with richer data, with context as well. So in terms of people related queries, etc. And being able to really find those experts. So the first thing, that I've done is, who can help me out with this particular skill. And it's going to return kind of a range of responses, and it's going to also look at that context and go, well, actually, I work with Lisa a lot. And so it's going to put Lisa up there. Now, Lisa might not be the best person, but I'm more likely to reach out. Sorry, Kirsty.
You're right.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Happy to not. Right, Lisa?
That's it.
These examples flatter me.
Yes. So I'm sorry. Yeah, the other way around. Maybe. Okay. Sorry, love. I'll buy first drinks. So I'm more likely to reach out to Lisa first because I know her. She's a friend of mine, and so I'm going to go, hey, Lisa, can you help me? You maybe not the right person, but can you introduce me to Kirsty, because I think she might be the person, but I don't quite know her, right? That idea of network. So Copilot is going to look at how I'm connected, as well as sort of what skills, and present me with relevant people, rather than, hey, the CVP of this product is the person you go to, right? Oh, yeah, I'm probably not going to go and do that unless I know them. The second one there is really around analytics. So this really focuses a lot on those talent management people in the organization, right? How do we provide built-in dashboards for them to be able to look at it, but also for our organizational leaders, and being able to understand that capability as well. And so that skills landscape report is something that's quite exciting as well. And then from people surfaces, we talked about in that flow of work. Right. So we want to be able to understand, as I search for people, maybe I want to see who around them has those same skills, or who maybe I'm looking at Lisa's profile and she's got Copilot Studio in her skills, and I'm like, oh, actually, I've got that skill set too. I'm going to add that to my skill set. So that idea of that in the flow of work, I'm going to see the skills somewhere else. I'm going to say, I really should have this on my profile as well. So hopefully that then creates that momentum that we, from an HR perspective, we really want kind of those that live updates. It might not be daily, but hey, it'll happen. And then connecting into the learning experience, right? You can't really have skills without learning. So what we're looking at is, how do we connect all of that together with learning? And even learning's changing significantly. I've really enjoyed some learning recently, which is me conversing with a generative AI person and having a conversation about, how do I learn how to talk about this particular product better? And it is the best learning I've had, because that's the, learning, I do learning, but I learn by doing. And so that was really great. It's like, nope, sorry, you did this really well, but you didn't do this, try again. And so those kind of ideas of, how do I then connect? I want to learn about these skills, and how do I then connect that to my learning? So that's kind of those capabilities. Now, anybody interested in understanding the architecture at all of skills? No, yeah, no, good. I mean, yeah, well, you can get the slide later on, but hey, that's it. That's the architecture of people skills and inferencing. But I wanted to really just call, in terms of these particular areas on the top and down the side, as we start to think about, in that flow of work, the persona card that it shows up in Org Explorer, in People Companion, so all different ways to understand where people are, across the Microsoft experience and the skills agent, the Copilot experience and the skills agent, in Viva Learning, connecting to that, in Viva Insights in the Analyst Workbench, and through Leader Insights in Copilot Chat as well. So it's not, this capability is not particularly attached to one particular area, which is why I said at the start of the call, start of the conversation, was really around, this comes as part of the Copilot experience that you have in 365 Copilot. And then in terms of if you don't have that, but you're interested, so for example, a part of your organization might have Copilot licenses, but I want to get a view across this for the whole organization, you can also buy the Delta in Viva Insights licenses and get that view, so you don't have to have that full investment straight away. So that's kind of where it can be accessed through a couple of different ways from a licensing perspective. Anyway,
The only thing I would probably do is ask is around the third party, they're connecting in the user skills from third party, and what does that actually then look like? Because I know I get people sort of going, does that mean I can connect to LinkedIn or to the MVP side or to the, to be able to pull information?
Yeah, so the skills taxonomy, when you go to set it up, there's a couple of different ways. So you can have a skills taxonomy that you have already created, and you can import that. You can, maybe it's through Workday. You've got Workday and you've got skills in there. You can bring that in through third party as well. If you don't, you can use the LinkedIn taxonomy, which is kind of our fundamental taxonomy. So you can, you don't have to build your own and spend that time. You can actually go in and go, I'll have untick all the ones that you don't want to bring across from LinkedIn and bring that across. So we recognize that there are people have HRIS systems with skills taxonomies in there. We recognize people have absolutely nothing and kind of want to start. And in terms of the setup, actually, the setup of this, from what I've seen and experienced, is quick. Like, within a couple of hours, quick, assuming you've made those decisions beforehand. So this is something that is easy enough to do and try out, and start having those skills inferred.
Getting into very specific. Organizations going to have that, like, we call it this and we use this term, we're very special and we have our own special skills we don't have. So they've not set up a taxonomy. They just kind of,
you can modify. Yeah, you can modify it. Yeah.
So they don't need to do, because the thing I find is people always want to go straight to, therefore we need to train a customer, which usually we don't. So if they can input at that top level, here's the language we're using around those skills in our industry, is that a way to feed that in?
Yeah, so you can modify that taxonomy and do that so it's unique to you, right? You don't just have to use that. You can have a combination of. You can use one you've built before. So yes, that allows you that flexibility. Yeah. The question I often get is then, what about proficiency ratings and things like that? So that's something that we are still kind of looking at. What might that look like? Because that then speaks very much into, well, I classify, an expert here in this particular skill as this, but you say why, right? And so there's just discussion around how would we do that from a global kind of perspective.
Because my skill in something I might be a beginner at something, but it's detecting and inferring that I have.
You have a skill.
My colleague is deeply expert at that thing, but it's just going to show both of us having that skill.
Right now, yeah. We'll see what comes in terms of the future, but that is, in terms of my role and speaking with loads of customers around this particular space from a variety of different industries, that is kind of for those who are still probably on that left-hand side of that job kind of based framework. That is a very kind of a question that's asked all the time. When you start to get to the right-hand side and people are more mature in this particular space, there's less kind of, there's less need for that. There's still kind of questions happening, so it's not.
So the proficiency scale is a less mature way of.
Because it's very much tied to kind of that job-based architecture, but yeah.
Is it just skills or is it certifications?
So this is around skills. So, but the question has sort of come up, particularly in regulated industries, and I think that's so. I think there'll be a combination of skills and certifications that you would then bring together. So, yeah, I think it's a really interesting space because at the moment what you have is kind of people solving for components of it, and you'll see quickly over the next few years as things start to come together and then create sort of that more mature kind of product offering or product set. At the moment people are solving sort of for more of those individual things and starting to kind of build out from there. So we'll see what happens, but it's definitely a question.
I've got, and maybe it's along the same lines as certifications, but is there anything built in with, I guess, timing? Let's say you have to refresh something every year. Is there anything sort of built in?
So that's kind of linked to a bit more, that's more linked to certification rather than skills. Yeah. So I need to recertify something. So yeah. I think, once you have that skill, you kind of have that skill. But again, it goes back to that question of where does that skill level sit. But
certifications, I would see more sitting into that HR system and learning and connections and making sure it's up to date, and then that would feed through into skills.
Well, it's even if you learn something, a couple of years ago, you might know the skill then, but you having it, would you count it as a skill 2 years later? Sort of did a course, 2 years ago? Probably not.
We also need to think about that there's a very big change in learning as well happening out there, particularly sort of where I talk to sort of some of those organizations that are at the leading edge, where it's like, well, learning isn't about doing the course anymore. It's about, have I presented to a live audience, or have I, learning might be with a mentor and, sitting,
classifications.
Yeah, exactly. And learning is not just that's what we call structured learning, and learning in that flow of work to be able to say, hey, Copilot, I need to improve my prompt writing skills. Can you help me there? Right. And so that's also learning, improving my skills. So yeah, there's a whole big change sort of happening around how we see this particular area. Anyway, how am I going on time?
You're right. You're all good.
Good. All right. So because of the newness of the experience, and I don't have access to a demo site, I'm going to show you some videos. I do have some live kind of demo that I can showcase, but it's just a bit tricky because I've only got access to my internal sort of scenarios, and I'm a little bit worried about
that'll go up on the
showcasing people's contact details or whatever. So for that purpose, and I do have them. So if you want to come, for those of you who are online, but after those in the room, if you want to come and have a look, I can quickly show you something. But those who are online, you'll see that in the videos. But I'm going to take you through kind of that employee, that leader of an organization and a talent manager kind of viewpoint the employee, the talent management and leader point of view through here. So the first one we'll see kind of that in that flow of work where I might see skills, how I might update things, and how I might kind of access and find who can help me in a particular area. So hopefully, cross fingers, this will all work. If somebody can give me a thumbs up when I start playing, that you hear the
video.
sound,
Keep an eye online if
be
you can just give
good.
us thumbs up, guys.
Yeah. So that should automatically stop playing. And I've just Great. So I'll just pause there and see if anybody has any questions or thoughts on that experience. But you can see kind of how the skills come up there. To the question before about less specifically about kind of going back and refreshing, but because I'm always going through the graph, it's always going to actually come up. And when I looked at my profile recently, I'm like, oh, there's skills there that I've got to confirm that over that last couple of weeks I've kind of built up. So any thoughts or questions or?
And other people only see the ones that you've confirmed.
So you can, there was some privacy settings there. So you can control kind of who's setting that. So I can actually say for some of my colleagues, I can just see those confirmed skills. For others, I can see both. Yeah.
Sure, I figured out how to critical thinker.
Yeah.
That was one of the skills there.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, I mean, I don't know how that, I don't know exactly how they program that, but what I do know is that it's looking across that data of the graph. And obviously there are things there that in terms of maybe how I've responded to something, I've then, I've applied critical thinking and reasoning to responding to an email or a situation. And therefore it's going to say, well, actually, that was a really good response of critical thinking, right? That's what I'm going to assume anyway. Yeah. And Roxana's just saying, love the people companion integration. Yeah, I think, it's great to see that kind of integration across various areas because that's going to encourage people to come in even more.
You said you've got this live for your.
Yes.
Have you seen what it's done for you?
Barely, because it's only been sort of 2 weeks or so. Yeah, no. We've been coming up to end of financial year. Yeah.
The reality of these things is always like, oh, that's surprising.
Yeah.
That's odd. Like those reflections.
Yeah.
Especially when something's brand new, because this is the reality of all of these AI tools as they're brand new, is that they first come in and then they get better and they get better.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, look, I haven't had a let's say an adverse reaction and go, what the heck, right? So yeah, I think it's interesting. What I did was I also because we've got a lot of skills-based stuff coming out now, I looked into things like role descriptions and looked at the various skills that we have in our library and was kind of like, oh, that's interesting. Actually, I do that. So I've added more skills than what was inferred, and I've confirmed. And so I've gone through and being a lot more, I'm, to be honest, in my career, I have all the roles I've had since pretty much a long time. I've gotten because of my network or who knows me or who knows what I do. And so for me, that was a natural progression. I'm going, okay, well, what skills, what else can I add, right? What else do I want people to know about me or can find me? And so that was kind of my one observation was AI imprinting will go so far, but
you have to give it.
I have to give it more. Yeah, I want to give it more. Or there's potentially different ways of saying things as well, right? And AI, and that's probably the recognition I probably did think about is that's great, but I'd probably, in the library, it might be called something else, or in this role, which I kind of connect to, or maybe it's a role that I'm looking at. Well, I've got that skill as well. So yeah, so I think, I was curious and I was really looking at what else is there. But it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see kind of, we've also got a talent marketplace out there, which is an external provider. And so that's connected in there too. So it'll be interesting to see then how that then connects up and connects me with roles and things like that I might not have even thought about. So that'll be an interesting thing to do. But that the learning side and that talent marketplace side, so the recruitment sort of side of things, that's the broader connection with skills that comes out there.
This might be a bit left the field, sorry, I'm just
good.
going in overdrive. How you mentioned about the critical thinking and it picking up from potentially what you've inputted into the system to pick that skill out. Will it also do that from transcriptions of conversations in Teams meetings? You know how it's not the words that you're writing, it's actually how you present yourself, and then the transcript picks up what you say. Will it then get skills from how you present yourself or the things you talk about in those meetings?
I will come back on that one. I think that'll be a great way of like, here's a transcript and you said lots, and maybe we need some public speaking.
Yeah. But it does do user sentiment when you actually ask, like, how did my users actually feel at the end of that training? You can actually ask Copilot based on the way they've interacted and questioned. So maybe.
Yeah. But it'd be interesting. Yeah, I think as we go to explore this particular space and think about how agents might help us, learn or develop or, improve on skills and things like that, it will need that information to be able to do that. So let me just pop that one to come back to you on, unless somebody knows in the audience who's watching or anybody at Microsoft who can look into Copilot internally and find that out. But I can definitely come back on that one. All right, so the next persona really is from an organizational level, as we look at sort of the talent management team. And so then how do I understand as an organization, where do we need to kind of apply more training? Do we need to hire more people? Do we need to reskill people? The idea is, right, with skills is that we've got the skills in the organization. We might not need to buy them in as a contractor or employ them in and get them up to speed. I think one of the big mining companies that I spoke to a couple of years ago, they were saying, we had a need for 2 roles with this particular really quite unique kind of skill set, and they ended up spending $600,000 in getting 2 people in, and then they realized actually they had this skill set over here in a different role. It's just because they weren't in that role or hadn't been in that role that they were hidden from view. And so this is where kind of being able to understand kind of where those skills might be in those particular, you don't have to be in the role to have those skills. And actually you don't have to have that role in 5 years in that role if you've got this skill from over here and here and here. And so that's kind of where that kind of change from job-based architecture to skills-based architecture goes. So let's have a look at then from an HR point of view, what that might look like. Right. So you have that. Let's not look at that again. But yeah, so therefore, you can see how clear you can start seeing where the skills in the organization where I might need to kind of focus some activity in particular areas. Again, whether that through upskilling or through hiring or things like or activities like that. So it will come in particular areas. Any comments or questions or thoughts on that one from the online team or from in the room? No. So the last one that I'll talk to really is around so the idea from a leader point of view in the organisation and really thinking about sort of that skills agent experience. So you saw in that initial kind of user experience, you saw I looked to find an employee who might be or colleague who might be able to help me out. From a leader perspective, in this particular scenario, we want to identify sort of experts in my team, find gaps and understand that. So I don't necessarily need to rely on my talent management team telling me where that's at. I can take a proactive approach and really understand if this is the direction we're taking this, then I'm going to need this particular skills, or maybe I've got a project that I need to be out there. You can see how from a consulting company, you could be looking at, do I have these particular skills? And this is really important. And definitely our consulting customers have been super interested in this particular space. But let's have a look at the skills agent as we go. I'm just going to pause there because one feedback that I've had for our marketing team, that level for our demo environment, and what you're seeing is actually level in the organization, not competency level, because I think a lot of people just kind of automatically jump there. So I just want to clarify, going back on our conversation before about competency, that is actually just level where you are in the organization, right? How many levels down from the CEO,
Okay.
Just to be clear. There you go. Okay, that's not going to play again. Right. So in terms of what I had today to cover, I mean, I can show you the licensing model if you want to see that. I can talk to some of the setup and show you some setup and some privacy stuff, but I thought I'd just kind of leave it there and see if there's sort of any questions online or in the room around that. But I think that's pretty much I don't think I'll go through that unless somebody is super keen, but yeah, it is a really exciting investment area that we're looking at in this space. We think it's something that's really needed as we look to an agile future. So hopefully I've provided you with enough kind of technical kind of thinking and enough HR kind of thinking for kind of the audience. But I think the one thing I would say is one of my passions is to connect people and technology teams together and have conversations. I think I talk about it sort of an engagement alliance to engage employees to make the change. Artificial intelligence, generative AI, Copilot, they are about changing how we work. And so it's really important to engage people teams who work with people, who work with change, to engage them to help in terms of how do we work to get the organisation to leverage AI and bring the benefits to the organisation. So if you're not already, definitely reach out to your colleague in that particular space and figure out how do we work on this together, because this is not an IT project. It is a change in how we work as people, how we work as organisations, and so that partnership needs to be really strong. So I'll leave you with that point of view.
We have a question. Roxana's asking, what are the skills in PAPI? It's on that inference model here.
Good question. That is, hang on. I am going to have to, that is something I hadn't seen, and they've changed that wording, or that, gotta love Microsoft and their acronyms. So I'm like, I'll have to think about that, Roxana, but thank you for that question and for that opportunity for me to learn something new today. Yes, I'll come back to you.
So personality and preference inventory.
Oh, well, there you go. Thank you.
They are work-related personality traits and preferences, not specific job skills.
There we go. All right. That's the first time I've heard that acronym.
Yes, there's soft skills like communication, leadership, and collaboration in the work environment. Assertiveness, sociability, detail, resilience.
Great.
So, yes.
I have a question specifically about whether it can do a M365 skills assessment, because I think there's a real gap in a lot of workplaces of just doing the basic M365 things. So can it actually say, this is the skill level of being able to do something really basic, like set up a workshop with rooms in Teams, for example? It's not actually basic. A lot of people wouldn't know how to do that. So can it assess that?
So at the moment, it's not doing any assessment, right? Okay, but there is
finding and inferring.
It's finding and inferring, or you say, I've got skills in X or Y. At this point, like, we'll see what happens in the future from a future roadmap. At this point, what I can say is customers are asking that question. But again, it's just how does that connect in, and the importance of that, and how do we create sort of more of an easy way to kind of have the same level. I mean this and I mean that, right? If we're doing it through us, right? So if we're doing it through this people skills and assessing through here, what does that actually mean? I mean, it would make sense for Microsoft to look at Microsoft skills and go, this is what it means, and us be that authority on that. But I think it's a much bigger picture. How do we look at skills across there? It definitely is an interesting conversation happening at the moment. But from an HR perspective, having that inferencing model is a long way step forward to, hey, can you come in and update your skills? Please, can you come and update your skills? Come on, I'll bribe you to update your skills, right? And
like we have with Dell, when we had the Dell.
Totally.
Off the back of that, like thinking is the MVP. One, we've got Viva goals, and then and building out, and what are the skills, and understanding where people are actually at, and building OKRs, and potentially then things coming through from some of that.
And but that's being depreciated.
Yeah. So and on top of that, but on top of that, then you've got other components that come in through Viva Learning, for example, and what is the learning that could have been, I'm thinking ways that it could potentially pull in. But on the flip side of that, then there's that confidentiality where a lot of times in the back end reporting, the individual is not actually then, in there. You have to be very specific to turn that on in the reporting to get it down to the individual level as an organization for confidentiality reasons. And Microsoft have got that then, and being really careful around the individual and the confidentiality that comes in with the individual, and highlighting that, and it not being used ethically inside organization. So but I think would have a fine line, I would think.
40% of our team have visibility and 60% don't. You've got this really great opportunity to go, this is where we need to focus from a slightly different.
Who could it be?
But also well, not even who, because with that privacy, that's a different challenge. But
yes.
Understanding the landscape, because I think there's a lot of expectation that people just know how to use these, and the reality is that they don't,
Yeah.
or they're not using them. They're using them to 5% of their ability.
Yes.
How do you?
Which is what I do, isn't it? I do it all the time. Yeah, I do it all the
Like,
time. I pull the reporting. I say, no, I need it down to the individual level so I can actually see what's going on. And I
Yeah.
break it out by teams and run a ton of reporting inside when I do adoption programs. Yeah, I do it all the time.
Yeah.
So
But then
having
again,
an easier way would be better.
yeah, we have certification. I do the certification, but I don't use it, right? I'm certified in
Yes.
security somewhere along the lines because I had to be, but I don't use it in my
No.
job. So I wouldn't put it as a skill anyway, but I've got the certification in that. So it's again, I've got that certification, but then I have that continuous sort of practice, which then could, you know, and again, I'm not representing the engineering team here in terms of this is my personal opinion. But, you know, you could start to think about, right, if I've done the certification and I have this kind of ongoing inferred kind of use of something in my, then maybe that may be where, you know, you might be able to draw some conclusions from that. I don't know, but
I thought with insights it was all de-identified and you couldn't scope things down to a smaller level.
yeah.
Really careful.
So yeah, so the in the Copilot capability, there is, you know, you can, as a leader, I can ask those questions in the insights report. I'll have to go and have a look at that, but the insights report is looking at it from an organizational point of view, right? Whereas and this is where, you know, we're not, the skills landscape report is one thing, but then in Copilot agent, skills agent, to be able to ask the skills agent who on my team has this particular, so that's a very different kind of use case, and this isn't, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens around, you know, as people start to use it, where there might be some more kind of boundaries that are brought into place or something like that. But I think it is something to the benefit for people to know kind of what skills I have and what skills I might need to improve on and things like that. So but, you know, we'll see if people use it for bad, then, or ask questions that are indicating I want to use it for bad, then
I
we'll
thought that was the reason that it was sort of, or, you know, not scaled down just in case you were, HR was sort of trying to get rid of people that didn't have X number of skills and whatever. I thought that was why there was all the guardrails set up. You couldn't actually scope it down to say, all right, those 5 people, you know, see you later. But if you
it was more Viva Insights is more around productivity, right? That came from are people working 9 to 5, and there was a big push to that, right? Because a lot of old school thinking is you had to be online doing something from 9 to 5 to be productive, and in fact, actually, you know, and don't get me started on this, but you have
We can have a good conversation.
the whole idea really is, right, are you doing, have you got the outcomes? Okay, if you're working 6 hours a day, good on you, right? And getting your job done, that might give you opportunities to extend rather than, or, you know, maybe you do take the afternoon off to go do something with the kids. Maybe I'm working flexibly, so I do that a lot. I start work late, I work later, I have meetings at nighttime, and so that I don't fit in that. I'm online from 8:30 in the morning until 6 o'clock at night. But then, you know, if you looked at my profile, it could be like, oh, well, Karlee's working at midnight. Well, I'm a night owl. I do love a good chat at midnight. And you could be kind of going, well, you shouldn't be doing that because you're going to burn out. Well, actually, I get engaged by that because I'm chatting to my US colleagues and I'm getting stuff ready for the day, and I'm good with that. But, you know, that's why we kind of don't look at that individual, because there's elements of that. Let me stop sharing if you got that.
That's okay.
Karlee, when's it going GA? It's supposed to be June, wasn't it?
No, so skills, did that? Yeah, let's stop sharing. So skills inferencing has skills, the Copilot, the skills agent is due July. It's like any time now. Sometime around now. So I think it's kind of this week or next week, maybe. I've got to check to see if there's any slippage, but it was about June, and then early July was the co-pilot, and then we'll start to see kind of roadmap come out from there in terms of what's then coming after that. But those are the two key moments in terms of that experience.
And not to go into licensing too deeply, but so the co-pilot, that's just the co-pilot agent. So it doesn't need individual people to have the co-pilot to be able to.
It does.
It
needs the co-pilot.
I can bring that slide up if you like.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. If you've got that slide somewhere in there. So there you go. So if you have a look at that, yeah. So the inferencing does require the M365 Copilot license. And then if you don't have that, then if you have Viva Insights or Viva Learning, that will also allow for it there. In terms of the Copilot chat, which is sort of down the bottom, that does require Copilot license.
And the inferencing that it uses, is it only after the person's been enabled? Does it only sort of index things after that, or does it go back pre? I know there's some limitations previously that things were just post-enabled.
Good question. I think it might go back 3 months, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. So I'll look to check on that one. But yeah, it is regularly looking, but I'm not sure if it, like Viva Insights went back, it goes back sort of 18 months worth of data, 13 months worth of data. Sorry, now I'm telling fibs. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'll double check on that one. This is really great. I'm learning stuff I need to go and look at. So.
There's nothing like a different audience that.
Well, but yeah, yes, this is probably the first time I've talked to a more sort of IT technical heavy audience rather than my learning
organizational
CHROs have just been like, tell me more about it because we need to know. And so that's where I've spent a lot of my most 100% of my.
We get such a big variety at the user group from trainers to change to technical. Can always end up being, you never know which way it's going to go in the questions. Sometimes we get some really heavy tech and it's like, okay, that's way outside our end user audience.
No, well, I don't and then I don't come from a tech background, so I'm kind of like, I walk the fine line.
That's where and that's what the user group is actually kind of designed for, is
if they're playing around with a lot of customers that have got geographically dispersed offices, and being able to do sort of like a heat map or something of where skills and pitfalls are in different offices.
So with Viva Insights, because that's where that organizational viewpoint sits, and same with Copilot, the detailed Copilot reports, etc. You at the moment it's uploading an organizational data file, but there is what we call Modus. I think it's now more of a public name, but Microsoft Organizational Data Ingestion System, which will allow you to import more sensitive information and have more controls over that into Entra. And so therefore you'll be able to then say downstream systems like Insights, like Viva Glint for surveys, to be able to then use that data to slice and dice, say, in this region, what's the skill that needs to be improved at this demographic, what needs to be improved at this kind of role level, what needs to be improved upon. So yeah, that capability. So you can upload an organizational data file now to be able to slice and dice reports like that. And that will also then, that data will also then be available to things like Viva Amplify and Viva Engage. So then you can report on sort of your comms engagement with that by slicing and dicing that information as well. So it's valuable information, but you can, for Viva Glint, for example, you may want gender data in there to be able to slice and dice, because we're doing a lot of gender
That's
stuff.
what I was meaning to say instead of goals.
Oh yeah, goals. Like,
it's like, hang on a second, no, goals is done.
Viva Glint.
Glint. I meant to talk about.
But yeah, Viva Glint, you'd potentially want gender-based data, but everywhere else maybe not so much. So there's pay grades or something like that, right? You want to be able to slice and dice opinions by pay grades, for example, but you wouldn't want that anywhere else unless you had a good use case for it in Insights. But that would be how you'd bring that information in.
Thank you.
Sorry, similar question to your question, but it's maybe the words that are being used that I'm not fully understanding. Obviously you mentioned about historical data. So we have like a whole pool of consultants that will be active and then inactive. So they'll have a Microsoft account, but it might not always be active until they're on an active project. Will we still be able to search for their skills on their profiles? Or because a lot of ours are also, like I know you mentioned about 3 months, a lot of our consultants have been with us for years, couple of years. But if we've got a project for a client and we know we need a consultant with this particular skill, but they're not currently active with their Microsoft license, can we still search for their skills that way? God, I'm coming out with all the questions. I don't know where to win from. Any one of these things, and I'm like,
I have questions.
I do. I'm very much like you. I'm like, look, I'm going to ask, like, no question is a stupid question for me, because it's like an opportunity for me and others to learn if they don't say the same.
You co-pilot with the questions
That's
too.
right.
How's that?
Yeah, that'll be great. Yes. Well, I think some of that. Do you just activate, or do you create a new account for them?
Just activate. So some we create.
Deactivate, reactivate.
Yeah,
Okay.
Save on cost. If you're not use it.
Well, and create new ones as well.
Yeah, for new consultants that come on board.
Yeah. Yeah, some of that I probably don't need to hear, but anyway, how to get around Microsoft licensing 101. I think
it's pretty common. That'd be a very common scenario. Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, what you're asking is very valid, because I don't know many organisations that don't do it.
No.
Yeah, well, we're the only core team,
But
we're constant.
Yeah.
And there's some people that will drop in 6 months and then they'll leave for another 6 months and they'll come back again.
I think the challenge would be if you created a new account for them, because then that's disconnecting two lots of information.
The account is deactivated.
Be searching.
In general, what happens if we take part
true.
out of it?
Mm.
If you've seen this,
true.
before,
Yeah.
What happens when an account is deactivated in terms of just even search
Mm.
in general? Can you find stuff? Because the answer will be probably the same as that.
Yeah,
I know the answer. I was phrasing the question in a way something we might know.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hidden.
Mm.
You'd still have, like, even now, if you ask Copilot today about users left the org, if you've had interactions, it still has that information in the semantic index.
Only your version of it, like in your emails or your chat history.
If you've had something to do with
If
them,
you've had interactions with them, but the actual person's gone. Because it's the same.
Yeah.
Across an organisational.
Sometimes when someone leaves, the profile is still there, and sometimes it's completely.
So let me
questions to take back to the team.
The current view in the room is not sure.
Yeah.
Pretty much it.
Good question, but thank you. Brilliant.
Righto. Thank you very much, Karlee. Really appreciate that. And we'll get stuck in now in terms of some of the what's new in adoption. Of course, the very first thing I'm going to bring up on the screen is the people skills on Microsoft adoption, where you've got information that you can then go in and download. So you can actually download the people skills guide. It's a presentation that's actually in there for you to be able to kind of pull down. It does link into the AI hub, but there's not really anything over in the AI hub. But of course, at this moment in regards to people skills. So it's got kind of the 3 videos there as well that's just sort of been shown, and they are in the presentation too. So I've dropped all of those slides into the presentation for you to be able to have a look at. So let's move forward. And so Change Champions calls, in fact, one is on tonight at all hours of the morning in terms of the Change Champions call. But the last 2 finally went live since last year to June. We finally got May and June has gone live if you wanted to go and have a look at it. A few of the things that are in there are pretty much what I'm going to be showing in the presentation kind of anyway. There's nothing that's of a big surprise. The main thing is, and I've already talked about it, was really the big changes that have gone on across the adoption site. They did a very big cleanup in terms of its interface and the way that you actually move around and the classification system. So to try and help out and make it a little more streamlined. The Microsoft Monday sessions are always underway, so please feel free to go and have a look at that. The next one is now, June 30th, so all hours of the morning. but you can just watch the recordings. It's always, all ours, I say. In terms of the release notes, there was an awful lot in here that was sitting a little bit more into the technical. There's a lot more technical information that you're going to find on the adoption site. Generally don't tend to talk about that an awful lot if it's sitting over in the security space and they're adding stuff in terms of the technical security. It's not really for this audience, so I won't generally talk about it. But there are a few things to go through that's actually come online. In the AI Agents Hub, you can see here it's got the Agent Success Kit. I would recommend going and pulling down the Agent Success Kit as part of this. Now, that's just in the kind of up the top in terms of the resources, but down the bottom, and we have brought this up previously, it's got the whole drive adoption piece. It's all now included on the one page, just to make it that little bit more easy for us to be able to find the information, which is great. In the AI Success Kit, when you download that, and I've touched on one or two of these things before, but it does go through the examples of all the different AI templates, and then it gives you a page. Remember, I always say, don't reinvent the wheel. There's always a ton of content out there. Just go and grab it. It will go through what it is, how it is for you to be able to help and do training inside your organization or knowledge and education. Inside this success kit, when you do download it, I particularly like there's, a comms email. You can either have it as the email itself, or it's got the Word document, so you can just edit the Word document and copy and paste it in terms of working with agents. It does go a little bit in, so when you kind of zoom in here, it does touch a little bit on the create an agent, which I know a lot of organizations won't particularly want to have in. So just please take note of that if you're going to go and use it. So that create an agent for the end user, they may not be able to if they don't have a license. So just keep that in consideration. You might need one that's more around use an agent rather than create an agent. The Copilot control systems, I talked about this last month that it was actually coming up. It has now rolled out. It is live. All of the recordings are available online to be able to have a look at. There's also, as part of that, there's a download page of all of the presentations based on the control system. Some good information in there. One of them that I've actually put over here was Caruana's in terms of the guidance around collaboration and adoption. Now, in there is the Champions deck, and it is particularly old. It still has Yammer and Office 365. I've offered them to update it for them, so I'm going to get started on that. They've given me the template, so cross fingers, we'll have a look and see, see if we can get something that's not as old for the Champs piece. So I may even reach out to a few people to give us a hand on Champ stuff. In the Customer Hub, there's always more information going up on the Customer Hub. What I do like is, you've got the Monday masterclass, which was the series that ran in terms of Viva that I've talked about in the last couple of sessions. It's now all been loaded on here. So it makes it one place to be able to go to find a lot of this information. And there's a little bit more that's actually flown through in terms of the team event readiness and some videos in there. Another big one is this Frontline Fridays, and I'm going to talk a bit more about some of the Frontline Fridays. Some good information in there if you're dealing with frontline staff to be able to help and support you. The Customer Hub, on that same page, the Customer Hub is there now, and all of those upcoming videos, whether it be you're watching previous on-demand ones or you want to actually join any of these sessions, they're now all been put over as a piece onto that page too, to make it a little easier to find. So go and have a look, because there's certainly plenty that's actually happening in this particular space. There is a bit more around AI going on, but there's certainly plenty of other content too. Microsoft Viva Pulse has actually put up this user guide. I particularly like some of the user guide and the step-by-step that's actually in there. It's 3 pages worth. This download of the package kit was broken. I put that through to the team, and that's been fixed. They're fixing that today. So it was just they accidentally put in an E on the link. So they're going to update that one. So that should actually no, it has been updated, because I checked the link when I was
going to say,
at the airport.
The team right now.
No, I've done it. I've done it. So because I trawl the site every month, I'm their curator of all things adoption, as everyone will know. With joys of being an MVP. There is a news piece that's just come out. It's it's the Clipchamp / Copilot and what's actually going on there in terms of creating. I have talked about the new Create agent that's kind of just been dropped into your 365 environment. You'll be able to see it on the kind of left rail when you go to office.com. We talked about it last month. So it's just a bit of a blog around what that is and what it's actually doing to, you know, help an audience if you need it. Yeah, did I go? Yep. On the corporate communications blog, this is where they've put all of those links for those first Fridays as well that you'll be able to see for AI for communicators. We've talked a little bit, there's been previous sessions, especially when we did Kimberly's session, we talked a bit about some of the information that's out there for communicators. This particular blog, I really like what they're actually doing in this space. I think that even though it might be for communicators, I think it's a little bit more relevant right across the adoption board. Some of the information and the way that it's flowing through, I do particularly like some of the content. The next First Friday is coming up very soon on the 7th. If it's something that you wish to join, of course it is at all sorts of crazy hours, but that's okay. The recordings are actually going online if you wish to. So there's a couple of good blogs in here, and I'm going to touch on those ones in just a second. That same blog has flown through a little bit into the Viva blog as well. In terms of some of its content, you'll see it here. So this is the latest one, the Global Exec and Employee Communications video. One to go and have a look at it. I like it.
Or
Yeah.
geek for short.
Yeah, geek. That's it. Exactly. So that's coming up in the, you know, in 2 slides. Yeah, the geek one. Go and have a look at these ones. I would recommend those as a bit of a view. There are 2 kind of blogs that have come out in terms of the geek piece. When it comes to the video, it's only the one video, but there are 2 blogs, slightly different information across the 2. What I did particularly like was in the presentation. There was some really good information in there. It went live from the conference, and I would recommend maybe having a look through the presentation. There's some good slides in there to be able to help and support you around what Microsoft have actually done when it comes to internal comms and how they're doing it and its ecosystem and the ways that they kind of connect with staff from a communication standpoint. A good presentation.
Everything on that left is the glint, and then that's the addition of anything that you've got active listening where you're actually asking the question, and passive listening where you're getting additional data to then look at engagement across the organization.
Yeah, so there's I'm going to go, how many of these slides will I bring in? So one, recommend going having a look at. On the Microsoft 365 blog, there is a bit more in there in regards to the fact that it's got data residency. There was a whole heap around data residency, which is great if you're in those countries and or maybe you've got an organization that lives across those countries. But I'm a little more focused on some of the other content. There's a bit going on in terms of the OneNote space at the moment. One thing that's actually flowing through, and there are reasons for doing what they're doing, right, which I can't go into at this point. In the moment we, you know, can give the get-go as MVPs to talk about it, we will. However, you know, due to Copilot, it is shifting a lot of our applications and the way that we actually engage in the ecosystem. So you're going to see a lot of things shifting to be able to enable AI. So this is one of them, and it's the way that you can go into OneNote. It'll have a kind of a recently used list, and you can then choose if it's within 5. Otherwise, if it's more than that, it'll do a bit of a search. Which notebook do you want to go into? The one you go and open up OneNote. So it will then stream into that OneNote as you open it up. Okay, a bit of a kind of a pickup. Not only that, but it's doing a multi-monitor piece. So as you move your OneNote from one monitor to another, in the past, sometimes on a particular monitor, it might have been a little blurry. Now it's got a lot smarter. It's actually recognizing your systems in Windows. So as you move it to another monitor, it will clear it up and go to that particular monitor's, you know, visuals and a few other things that are coming through. If you are in OneNote an awful lot, like me, it's a bit of a hero product for me. I use it an awful lot. You might have noticed that the Copilot notebook has actually flowed through into OneNote. It's sitting up the very top. It will allow you to be able to have a notebook in there that you can stream in other documents and information to be able to ask questions inside your notebook. It will do a maximum of 20 files that you can actually connect into that particular notebook. Now, this is a Copilot notebook, which lives within Loop, and that Loop is actually then going into OneNote. So it does have some limitations. You can only reference a page at this point. I know. It's, believe me, we had some interesting conversations over in Seattle in regards to the naming convention. I can tell you now.
Which level am I at?
Yeah, that's it. It will reference a page. It won't reference sections, and it won't reference notebooks at this particular point. And it also, there'll be a lot of features that you can't use because it's actually Loop. It's technically not OneNote. So you won't be able to do tags and inking and a whole heap of other things at this point. No, it's a OneNote piece that's coming in that you can actually question and query a page and documents and information kind of coming together. Effectively, it's your Loop notebook plugged into OneNote. So it allows you to kind of plug in a page. It does, could do a couple of pages, but you can't plug in sections or books.
Yeah, so let's say
Just for instance.
Hypothetically.
Yep.
Thinking I live in OneNote for everything.
Yep.
And I've got
Same.
40 pages.
Yep.
Stuff on that customer.
Yep.
Can't add all of that
No.
in here.
No.
Can I add 20 pages? Or
You can
I
add up to,
page?
in terms of references, it's saying 20 references. I haven't tried to see how many pages. Yeah, I haven't, because I've got the same thing, and I was looking at it and going, can I start adding in? Yes. Yes, I know. I'm the same. And I'm chatting with the team. We're doing a few things in this space to try and see what we can do. In the Copilot tech community, wasn't a massive amount considering how busy it's actually been of late. It does talk about the, Create app and what you can do. It does talk about the Copilot app learning series, and there are videos for each one of these in terms of these 4 learning series. It's got some really good content in there. I liked it around working with Copilot pages, for example. So it's focused on the apps that are wrapped around, but more on the end user side of things. There are a couple of little things that go kind of technical, but this one here, number 4, Your Day Powered by Copilot, I would recommend, watching this particular video. Just go to the link. Anything that's got an underline on it is a link, by the way, in the presentation. Session number 5 is coming very soon. And it'll be interesting to see whether this particular series, at the moment, it's embedding on the actual page. It's not going to YouTube or anything like that. So you have to go to this page, and there's no real link to each of these videos, hence why I haven't got them. It'll be interesting to see whether that comes over and goes into as part of the adoption series and moves maybe into the YouTubes or the likes, because it would be good to see it pulled off pages, the way that it's going through, passing that on to the team. The work lab always have some really good news kind of pieces and series, and talking about some of the various information and research around AI. I would say go and have a look at this particular one. This is by Jared Spado, put out there, AI at Work. So reshaping knowledge work. There's some good information in there to go and have a little bit of a read through. I wouldn't say potentially a huge piece of, but it's good. It's not too bad. I do like, however, this one that came through on WorkLab. What happens when you give 20,000 people Copilot? It had some information in there and a couple of statistics, and what were they doing and how were they doing it. It's kind of a use case scenario that they were saving kind of 25 minutes a day, which is then nearly 2 weeks per year in terms of their savings, and what were they actually doing, okay, and how were they saving, where were they doing the savings. I didn't mind that one, but I do like Jared's as well. In terms of planner, this just dropped today. News came through around assigning tasks, priorities, progress, and start and due dates into planner. I do like some of the changes that the team are doing, because we've been asking for a few of these things for a while, so thank you. In the Viva community space and what's actually going on there's a couple of things. Like, I did like the kind of the theme moderation. Whether that's going to really be of value to talk about today, probably not, but I
can show you a video if you need.
Okay, yeah, it's okay. And bring that up on the screen. But go and have a look at the blog. I actually quite liked it. The management of APIs and the like, some of it gets into the kind of the more technical, modern external networks. But the one that I did did particularly like, in fact, I loved this one. The information that was in there is really good when it comes to people success and AI. Some of the statistics and information in terms of the leveraging and the content in there around the people side of it, really good. But what I really liked is when you go down the bottom, some of the referencing links of what they're actually using are really good. I went and had a big click through a lot of this content, and I really liked some of the content in terms of where it was drawing from. Just purely because if it's in your space, it's fascinating reading as to what are they doing, where are they pulling that information, what's the research, what is it looking like. So go and have a look even down the bottom and start clicking around there and have a bit of a look through that content. The other piece was that breaking down the infinite workday, a little bit off the back of the work trend index, the report that was in there. Some of the statistics and information in there help us as adoption consultants to be able to support us across this space. So something to have a little bit of a look at. That might be the pizzas. Paul's probably gone out to get them. They're calling me. So one to go and have a little bit of a read as to what that actually looks like. What are people doing as behaviors in general? And how can then we help them based off these statistics, and we can talk about it and how we can use 365. In the Insider blog, lots going on in terms of the Insider blog. Quite a few of the things that were in that OneNote space is actually was in the Insider blog. It tends to be, one area, and Paul's gone, so I can't give this to him. Thank you. It's the pizza probably out the front. Thank you. The one thing I did like in the video in the Insiders, which is kind of that early track, this one here I thought was particularly smart, that you can actually edit the transcript and it trims the video for you from the transcript, which I thought was smart. Right? When we're dealing with things like meeting recordings and presentations, always the issue was we delete something here and it wasn't actually deleting our transcript, and then trying to work it out, and the timings and that's all now kind of marrying together, which I really liked. I think that was smart as a new feature. On the OneDrive blog, if you're going in having a look a little bit about what's happening across OneDrive, few of the things in terms of the OneNote space. The latest is actually up there now. June, July is coming very soon. But in the OneDrive piece, the one thing I will warn you of, when you watch this video recording, and there will be a ton of questions and a little bit of some issues, they are, and I've talked about it before, that Microsoft are not recommending the SharePoint sync anymore. So as part of the SharePoint sync to the desktop to File Explorer, they are looking at removing that and saying, do a link to your OneDrive instead. Now, they're actually recommending, and this is where you're going to need to be really careful as adoption consultants. Thank you. That was the pizza. I got it. So, yeah. The one thing I'd be really concerned about is if you go to link the OneDrive, link it to OneDrive as a folder to your OneDrive, it'll give you, do you want to replace your SharePoint, connection, because you've already got a connection in terms of syncing, and you go, yes, it disconnects your SharePoint, but of course your files stay. So now what you've got is, 2, 4, 5, 10 SharePoints that are no longer syncing. They're still in File Explorer. People can still be working in them locally. You need to make sure that people are deleting those folders because it's remaining. And so there's a huge risk because it's not removing that folder from the desktop and you've got a ton of SharePoints then synced. It's not great. So I'm warning you now in terms of user behavior and what they were recommending and the way to be able to do it. I would personally say get them to open all of those SharePoints up, unsync them, delete them all, and then do the linking down. Get them to get rid of them first. Swap the way that they're recommending it. Guys, and I wanted to bring this up, swap the behavior. Get them to get rid of it first, then do the sync into their OneDrive. Okay, because it's going to get really risky from user behavior.
The answering machine from IT will be, hi, if this is a problem about your files syncing, this is what you need to do.
Yeah, it's going to be a little scary, guys. So take that into consideration. This is what they're recommending, and they're taking that sync button away for SharePoints because of the way it's a lot slower and the way it indexes and things like that. It's OneDrive. It's they're pulling it like pretty much now. So Yeah. Okay, so people won't be able to do the sync to SharePoint. They might be looking for the button, and that's going to now just be the send it to OneDrive instead. It's fine in terms of moving forward, but for those that are past behaviors, and they'll probably just keep working, but that's not what they're recommending in terms of the best way to work with files. Yeah. What I really struggled with, and what you also might see from a user behavior, is your OneDrive can be fairly full, from a business perspective, a lot of different folders that are corporate type, or Microsoft folders that are dropping in, and people aren't understanding even at this point what is a generated Microsoft folder, like the Teams chat files, but there's so many others like attachments and all sorts of things, that then it just becomes a folder with a little arrow beside it to say that it's a SharePoint, and it's a little confusing. They're not going to necessarily know, and you can do some color coordination that might help them out.
Melinda's just asking, but we still have the problem if two people add to OneDrive instead of syncing SharePoint, right?
You can, Melinda, you can still add in OneDrive. It's no different. In fact, it works a little better because SharePoint syncing was always a real issue when it came to bringing it to the desktop and people being offline and it not saving. And so you can still work both through the SharePoint and the OneDrive, because I have done it. And if you open up a recent document, and I've done the sync now through OneDrive, it is recognizing it. So it hasn't given me an error message saying it can't find it. That's been one of the beauties, at least, because I was a little concerned that if I opened up a document that was a recent document and I've swapped out all the ways, because the URL the breadcrumb path looks quite different, because it used to be through SharePoint, now it's through OneDrive, but it is working from that perspective. Now, does that help answer your question, Mel?
She said agreed. So
yeah.
Gemma mentioned, I love that, but I'm not sure what that was, whether that was the fact that you're going to be online answering IT support calls.
Yeah, that's it.
Something else that was
we'll call you, Karlee. Yeah, we'll call you. On the SharePoint blog, one of the things that was actually announced was e-signatures from Microsoft Word. It's going to become a button up the top. However, you do need to have, like Azure and all sorts of things are turning on, and the same again, is it? And so there's a real challenge then around, I went to try and see if I could enable it, and it all just got too technical, too fast in the back end to set it all up. So it's outside my, sphere of understanding in terms of, creating it through and having an Azure license to do whatever, and you have to be able to do this and that. Yeah, it's all syntax and Azure and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. Whereas I don't, I probably do with my MVP stuff, but I went, oh, that's all gets too hard for me, when you live in there. But it is there, which is fabulous. So, there's some good content there around that. And I love that that's flowing through, because I think it is important and being able to do it. Yeah, they have for a really long time. There is the new SharePoint template gallery. So when you go to do a new SharePoint page, it will give you the whole, do you want to do pages or a news post? It's now got this whole new template gallery to be able to help and support you, to be able to have a bit of a play around. They're quite nice, some of the new templates that are actually flowing in, depending on whether you want to do newsletters and the likes. There's even more there now. And then, of course, you've got, Copilot on the top of that to be able to build your content on a page. And it's rather fun to do and have a play around. If you haven't used Copilot in SharePoint to build your content, it's there's some interesting stuff, although it's not putting some of the links and things that I would like. But there's the new FAQ web part in SharePoint. It's powered by Copilot for you to be able to drop in some of the, in terms of that web part piece and looking at it as to why you would. There are 3 core things that you will focus on in terms of the FAQs. Things like events, products, and policy are the 3 kind of core topics, and then what you might do as an FAQ. And it's now a web part to plug into SharePoint. Okay. So, of course, those that are going to be dropping it in are going to need the license to do it, but the individual user on the site doesn't need a license to be able to engage with it. Okay, that's something to take into consideration. On the Teams blog, it has that, the Fridays information is also flowing through into here. So there was a lot of that plugging in all over the place, which was good. Custom background galleries. There's the Pride, 2025 Pride backgrounds. There's some nice backgrounds in there to have a little bit of a look at. And then there's a, the what's new. Usually we have a what's new for Teams page. However, this time it's gone a little bit more based on what was done at the Enterprise Connect 2025 in terms of some of the announcements and information. There is some good content on there. Nothing that was overly surprising. Good to keep always up to date. There's a lot going on, especially in the likes of Teams rooms and the devices space at the moment. There's a lot more in there than anywhere else. In terms of Teams, the retirement of Classic is today done and dusted. Yeah. You might want to get on that. So it's got some of those key rollout dates here. What does that actually look like in terms of finalization on this particular piece? Something to take into, and if you're not already been on that journey, you might be in some trouble if you haven't actually hit it. But yeah, today's, drop dead date on that one. So, I can hear the heartbeat today. On the Excel blog, there is, one of the pieces on here, there was some good content. There wasn't a massive amount going on in terms of the what's new, unlike in the past, because Excel's been moving pretty hard and fast for some time, especially in the online space. There's been lots happening in there. But what I do particularly like now is it's got this smarter context awareness where when in the past you had to click on the content to be able to ask questions about the content, whereas now you can actually say based on, and you can talk about information that might be inside a table, and it actually will look at that referencing or the table on this particular sheet. It's understanding that in terms of some of the smarter awareness that's happening with Copilot. So I really particularly liked that. Moving forward, some of the events and conferences, don't forget, I am doing the Copilot Corner. Tomorrow night is Copilot with Excel. And I've got coming up OneNote, Loop, Whiteboard, and Forms, and there'll probably be a few more. So it's been an 11-part web series that I've been doing for the Microsoft Reactor pretty much every second Wednesday night. The recordings are available on my YouTube and or on the Microsoft Reactor site. So you'll be able to, the links are all in here. You're able to see the past sessions that I've actually run. And, Copilot and the likes move so fast. So things that I've done back at the beginning, look and feel has already changed from the first session I did a couple of months ago. But the premise of how to be able to do still remains the same. Okay. There's always the where do you find, the recordings information and things that I'm doing across the my YouTube channel. I put all different types of resources in here where I find a lot of my information. I've got my site around adoption for Copilot, of course, my wheel. It will have a change coming up fairly soon, but at the moment, I generally try and bring it on only every 6 months or so. Otherwise, I overwhelm people with the gazillion updates. Don't forget, there's always the events catalog. A lot of these sessions you can go and be involved in. There's the community day conferences, the likes all over the world. If you happen to be traveling and there's something that you want to do, including the Australian conferences, go and have a little bit of a look. There's always that foundational user training. Don't forget and support your users on this journey. And if you've got any questions, don't ask me, ask community. No, sorry, you can always reach out. There are lots of other user groups out there and the information in regards to the different recordings. As I said, the next session is actually on the 5th of August. It is always hybrid. I will be in person in Sydney at the Microsoft Reactor for the very last Reactor section in August. And then I will fly up and be with Chris in September. So please come along, and up in Brisbane on the 1st of September. I'm going up for a wedding, so I'm going a little early for about a week and a half, and I'll go hang out up there. So if there is any, questions, thoughts or comments or anything you want to have a chat about, feel free to ask me now. But the presentation is always available for you to be able to go back to. And if you do need to reach out to me to ask all the questions of the Microsoft community, please feel free to do that. Thank you for coming along for our first, obviously we've got way more people than I was expecting. So I'm really loving that. And I appreciate you coming in person and being back. There's nothing like, a bit of a networking and having a bit of a chat. And for those that are here, we're going to be hanging around pizzas, cross fingers, is it out there now?
Yes.
We had pizzas for those that are local. Sorry, everyone that's online, but Sydney, you've been spoilt for a really long time now, so you don't get to have any today. Cancelled the Sydney session with the bombs going off in Sydney. Thank you, everyone online. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask now. Double check in the group if anyone has any questions. Doesn't look like it.
Thanks, Kirsty, Karlee. Great session. We've got some experimentation happening by Melinda.
Yeah.
Jackie's typing something, but yes.
Yep. And thank you, everyone, for joining online. We'll close the session out now and look forward to seeing everyone wherever we happen to be. Righto. Thank you all.